People who are against kids having free school lunches, why? Asks question, gets answers from everyone except for the people op was asking. My bill is against free lunches. Like, for any kid. For any reason because the parents should provide it. Oh, they can't afford it? Their kids being hungry would motivate them to get a better job. Improve their lives. As if people aren't trying to do that long before they have hungry kids. The dude couldn't grasp that having trouble feeding your kids daily means that you feel desperate. Every day. That you need immediate relief. Not just eventual. And that's how crime increases. He just didn't believe that's a thing. Like not everyone has a better opportunity just hanging around within reach. Lost a lot of respect for him that day. Give a man a fish and he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish and he eats for lifetime. But it takes a while to learn how to do that reliably. So you need to feed him in the meantime. And he'll need to borrow some line and hooks at a minimum. My son noticed his friend never had lunches, so he asked me to send a second peanut butter and jelly sandwich with him every day for the entirety of 7th grade so he could tell her, my mom always sends me too, but I'm not that hungry. I know her mom, and of course we never said a word. After that, CA went to 100% free lunches for all. I'm so proud of my son for that. I used to be a lunch lady. And it was so sad when the kids didn't have lunch money. We were only able to give them a free lunch for 3 days before we had to cut them off completely. And those free lunches were different than all the other kids. They were either a cheese stick and a yogurt or a cheese sandwich. No sides. Nothing else. So, all the kids knew they didn't have lunch money that day. It was sad and humiliating. I got in trouble for giving away free food to those kids all the time. But we were throwing it away at the end of the day anyways. I literally got wrote up for taking a kid out a tray after lunch was served. And we had extras. Meanwhile, my boss was having me make chef salads to order for her entire family for dinner that she wasn't paying for. Long story short, I am all for free lunches. For everyone. If they are required to be there, they should get a free meal. I want my taxes to go to something useful, like bombing foreign citizens or subsidies for multi-billion-dollar corporations that go into the pockets of the executives. All kids should get free lunch. You give prisoners free food, why not kids? FFs. Lol at trying to find answers from the people this question is aimed at. I totally disagree with this person. But a coworker who is also a teacher is against it. She said, these people can afford it. I don't think I should have to pay for their kids' lunches. We teach in an affluent school. I pointed out that we don't know people's finances. I have paid for lunches out of pocket so students didn't go hungry or fed children because there was a lot going at home and no one fed them. Hungry children can't learn. She felt that these were the exception. My thought is if we feed them all, the exceptions are always taken care of as well. If students are forced to go to school, then they should be provided with free lunch, a wise person. Not my opinion. But to answer the question, it's to punish parents who could get off their ass and get a job or stop spending their money on drugs and instead take responsibility for the children they created. Why should Joe's kids get a free lunch when Joe is a deadbeat? Meanwhile, I work my ass off to live paycheck to paycheck so my kids are fed. Again, not my opinion. But a lot of people opposed to free school lunches feel this way. They're pissed that lazy, irresponsible parents get assistance while they bust their ass just to have nothing. They feel like it's unfair to reward or enable people who are willfully lazy. I am a huge proponent of the free and reduced lunch program. I'm 26 and it was around when I was a kid. Literally like 90% of my school probably qualified. The income limit for reduced lunch is very reasonable in my opinion in a household of 4. You can get reduced lunch with an annual income up to $51,000. So if you're busting your ass to make $55,000 a year, yeah, I could see why you'd be pissed that Joe's kids eat for free while you just barely miss the cutoff. For assistance, there is so much surplus in agriculture here that there's no reason for any kid to go hungry. I think free lunch for every single child would be extreme considering plenty of parents make a lot of money. And I think resources should be directed towards the kids who need assistance the most. I grew up poor and neglected. And no kid deserves to suffer just because their parents are poor. Or if they don't have money because the parents are drug addicts, lazy, irresponsible, whatever. I don't mind kids getting free lunch benefits, but why not just give it to all kids? As a parent, it makes things a lot easier. No need to pay $50 a month per kid or making lunches in the mornings. The reason is that wealthy people do not send children to public schools. So often will vote down any attempt to increase funding to the local public school system because they are not using it. As with many of the problems in the US, results and votes would be different if the wealthy had the same investment in the system. Some Scandinavian countries outlaw private schools, which is a great idea. It requires wealthy and privileged people to be involved in the same system rather than buy into a new one. Politicians would have the incentive to provide good schools and fund them properly, as that is where their children go to school. It is the same with the military. The US would be at war far less if there was a required draft in which wealthy children were subject to serve. Under the current system, a strong voting bloc can systematically defund the public school. This happened in New York. A religious group, who sent their children to private, mostly religious education schools, defunded the local public school by controlling the school board even though none of their children attended the school. Unfortunately, this would never happen, as religions are allowed to run private school, who then can spend little to no time teaching academics. Since no one here is answering the question, I'll give my opinion. I personally am not against giving students free lunches. However, I don't trust the government to implement any program like this properly. We already know how bad school lunches are already in general. I'm worried any funding will go to companies that will provide low-quality food, while school administrators receive kickbacks. It's a slippery slope. If we give them free lunches, what's next? Paying for the medicine they need to survive? Yeah, I don't think so. Making sure they have somewhere safe to live? Sorry, not while I'm of voting age. Besides, if we give food to hungry kids, how will they ever learn to appreciate a meal they've bought themselves? They'll come to expect that their government should be able to help meet their basic needs. And that's a bridge too far. Ultimately, I prefer not to think about uncomfortable things like kids in my own country who don't have enough to eat. So I'd rather pretend they don't exist. Giving them lunch would essentially recognize their suffering, which would bum my whole vibe. Besides, if those kids are able to take their minds off of their empty stomachs, they'll be more able to compete with my kid for things. And we can't have that. Edit. This was sarcastic, but it's kind of wild how closely this mirrors legitimate talking points from those on the right. Most of the people against increase of these programs, because this already exists and gets tons of funding in every district, are usually not against the idea. They're against the bad track record of how tax money is generally spent. For example, in my area they increased the school system budget immensely a couple years ago for all these supposed improvements to education and resources for students. In that time, not a single improvement or program at the schools have benefited. But the superintendent got a shiny new building for his staff and a couple extra salaried assistants, who just happened to be family members and friends. Funny that, huh? It's the same with healthcare. You won't find many even Republicans now that would disagree there needs to be healthcare reform. The argument is really who and how. Because generally the resistance to that is we don't need to throw tax money at the government and get little to nothing from it. My high school had a program where the food education classes would prepare all the food for lunches as part of the curriculum, basically practicing to be chefs. Then the cost of the food was just to cover the ingredients, so it was always super cheap. Like 50 a slice of pizza. And they were pretty damn big. Wish more places had that. At a minimum, fully free lunches for those in need would be far more ideal. I live in Finland. We have the free school lunches here since the 50s. Municipalities are obligated to arrange and provide them. There may be nothing more heartbreaking than making a child go hungry. It is outside of their control. At my school, the kids who were behind on paying for their lunches got peanut butter sandwiches. Humiliating for the kids and a blemish on our society. I am definitely not against it. During rough times of my childhood, I came to school with no lunch and I would starve until the end of the day. My good friend would always hand me $1 at least to pick up anything that would help me survive for the rest of the day. Till this day I appreciate her so much. I hope she's okay now. Is there anyone against this? Maybe you should try the conservative Reddit. But I think they don't have good internet down in hell.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Aircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.